Okay, so today I want to go through PyQt. So all I've done is created this PyQt GUI video folder for us to work in, and then checked my pip list. So you see Python install package list. That returns all the Python packages you have access to in the environment you're using. And you can see PyQt5 here is what we are working with. So I'm going to open my text editor and I'm going to save inside of my files, my Linux files, PyQt GUI. We'll call this main.py. So the way I like to run this is, even though this is a text editor, Google Chrome has done a pretty good job of building in support for the language. So if name equals main, I want to print run from the main. This lets me know where program execution started. So if I go back to this, I'm going to clear this out. I do a line search. I have main.py. I want to check my Python 3 version. So I'm going to type Python 3 main.py. Cool. So what this double underscore method does is it checks the file name. So this is somewhat confusing because I named this main. But if you run a file in Python from its base right here, its name is main. No matter what I would call this file, I could call this file 7. So I can show you that as well. And I just said if name let me do a line search, and let me copy this. So you can see still type run from main because the program you're calling first is the top level Python module. So that's how you can trace through and write unit tests for different files using the name built in. But that's the purpose of this name. So I'm going to delete the 7 because that's not really what I'm trying to do, and I don't want it to sit there and confuse me. PyQt video. How do I delete? Oh, here. Delete. Okay, so I actually don't remember the syntax for some of this stuff, so I'm just gonna do this. Nope. I'm gonna do this. I thought the AI tool would take over there. So I'm going to use this to generate some stuff, and then I'll go through what you need to do. Okay, so we should have both of those imports. So the first thing I want to do is test this like modularly. I don't know how to comment anything. Oh, nice. Control, and then backslash. So let's go ahead and run this. Alright, so we executed well. Now let's do this and say print run from there's probably a built-in method for oh, I don't want to do that, so I don't not do that. Okay. So we'll test this now. That's good. So our imports work. Okay. So we actually don't need to do this, I think, for now. We could just have a Q main window here. Q main window. And then I'll explain this as we go. Okay. This is okay. I've looked into this, and if you change the display, if you change the surface display, then the title doesn't work. So it's like trade-off here. I don't have a lot more time to look into it, but that's the idea. So what we're doing, what this does is this creates the Q application main loop. So all Qt programs operate on their own main loop, and this call, after you do app.execute, it starts the Qt event loop. So that's what your Q application app is managing. You have this window, Q main window, and that's actually the display. So if I were to just comment this out, it would be kind of an issue because it would just run and have no way to exit itself, right? Like nothing's going to show up, it's just going to sit here because I didn't give it a visual display surface. So it's basically it's running its Qt event loop, but you don't have a way to exit it. So we can just close the process in that way. So the main window is the display object that shows all your GUI widgets. And there's a lot of theory behind this. Not really theory, but there's like more software behind it. But the goal of what I want to do here is show actually how to use PyQt. So the window is your main visualizer. All widgets and layouts are in some way attached to this window. And there's built-in conventions for how you should do this, and we'll go through that in a second here. Okay, so now that we see kind of these commands, like, all right, our window has a resize function, and then we're going to show it. Then the main event loop will start, and then we have a system.exit call that lets us send an exit signal after the app's main event loop has terminated itself. So what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to, I'll call this my main window so it doesn't seem like any kind of Qt built in. So you can see our imports here, right? This class main window inherits from Q main window. So the idea is you use the built class or super class in Python words to build the window you want for your GUI. Okay, so as typical in Python, you have the init, you call the super.init, and then you set the window title, and then you set the geometry. So if we call this, and I take this and replace this here, we've now created an instance of our class, my main window. I'll write a comment here. Instance of our class, my main window, which inherits from Q main window super class. I don't know if there's a hyphen there. If you do it like this, I'll leave it like that for now. Whoa, my computer is slow. I might need to take away this resize call if it's going to set the geometry. Nice. Okay, so you can see what you're basically doing is you're using the commands provided by the QMain window in your own class. So you're inheriting the support from the super class to use in your own main window class. So we're using the function set window title, set geometry to do so. So in Qt, typically there is something called a main widget. And this main widget is what is this the parent for all of your widgets. So like you have a central widget and all your layouts and widgets will build up to this central widget. So we'll see how the layouts and whatnot work in a second. So I'm going to say self.main widget, or central widget, sorry. I think it's central widget is the convention. Equals Q widget. So that means I need to import Q widget in here too. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to close this. Oh, I misspelled it. I misspelled it here. Okay. So I'm a person that likes to run his stuff fairly consistently. So then we can say self.set central widget self.central widget. What am I doing wrong? Oh, this. It's not callable. Duh. It's okay. Great. Okay, so let's make a comment here. Create a central widget. Set the Q window. And then this will set the QMain window central widget. Okay, so maybe I can comment these lines too. Set the title. Set the window geometry. Okay, so this is good. So now it's probably time where I would wonder, well, what else can I do with this? So this is really a basic flow and structure for your main, and then your custom main window class. So you can see how you have the Q application, the app object, you have your window, you show your window, and then you execute the app's main event loop, and then on completion of this execution, the system will exit. Great. So now what's important is what goes on between here and here. So let's start building out our application, or our main window, sorry. Q push button. So what we're gonna do is make a push button, self dot push button equals Q push button. And then let me make sure I got the syntax right. Great. So in order to hold this push button, I'm going to put it on a layout. So I'm going to create a Q main window Q grid equals Q grid layout. Oh, that was super dumb. Okay. So let's have this push button say start. Now what we need to do is we need to say self dot main window Q grid add. I don't remember the syntax for this. How to add a Q widget to a Q grid layout. Widget, row, column. Okay, so we're just going to focus on first three because as you build your application out, the row span and column span become more specific, but I want to get through what I'm focusing on is how to do how to do this mechanically, and then when you really want to build out your own application, you can look into how to size things and stretch and auto stretch vertical and horizontal. So what it wants is the widget, and then the X and Y. So the Q grid is literally what it sounds like. It's a grid, basically like a two-dimensional row column matrix where you insert your widgets into the row column space you would like to insert them on. So now if I run this, we'll see that nothing has changed. The reason nothing has changed is because I need to make the next two, or I need to complete the next two steps. So I need to say, so I need to complete the next step. I've create a Q layout. So in Qt, you have widgets and layouts and a main window. You take a widget and place it on a layout, and that layout gets placed on the main widget, or the central widget, sorry, is what they call it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say self dot central widget dot set layout, and then I'm going to set the layout to the main window Q grid. Add. Then we will set the central widget. Now you can see our push button exists on our window, and it's a clickable item or widget or whatever you want to call it. This is really what you want, so this is success. So you can see that when I click this, nothing happens, right? Like this function, that's great. I click the X, it works. If I click the minus, it works. The way you set up this kind of functionality is with connections. So Qt works on a signal slot basis. That means that you generate a signal, and it calls a slot function. So I don't remember how to import slots, so we're going to do that now. Bloop. I don't need that window anymore. What is the PyQt slot decorator syntax? Import and call. PyQt core, import PyQt slot, and then you place the decorator around it. Okay, that's right. Okay, so let's make sure this import statement works. And actually, this is a lot of text that keeps displaying, so I'm going to do a clear and after every call. Cool. Okay. So the way this works is, what I'm going to do is I'm going to define a function called push button slot. I don't actually know naming conventions in Python. If I should do this. That's what we'll do for now. So I'm going to say self. And then I'm going to do a pass. Then let's make sure I did the syntax right. Close. So the way this works is you place this PyQt slot decorator here. And if I run this, you'll see that when I click this, nothing's going to happen. What we need to do is after we create this push button, we need to tell it self.pushButton.pressed, I think, .connect. We'll see if this, I don't want to ask ChatGPT, I can do this. .connect self.pushButton slot. So what we're saying is that we've created our QPushButton object. Now we need to create a signal slot between, I should do an arrow. With press and then push button slot. Okay, so let's see if the syntax is right. That's crazy. All right, I do know what I'm doing. I haven't used PyQt in a while. I usually use C++, but Python is what is simpler to, I guess, show if you don't know C++ yet. So as the calls read, here's my object. The action is pressed, and what I want to do if I press is I want to connect this function. So what I'm going to show is I'm going to put a print statement in here, and I'm going to say inside push button slot. So you could see when I click this start button, I'm actually inside this function. So the idea with Qt, this is the signal slot mechanism that it works on. When you click a button, you can attach an outcome to that. And there are some cool, simple things you can do, like you can change, I don't know, maybe you can change an image, or you can change a color, or you can run a routine. But this, in essence, is the basis for Qt. So I guess we can build this out into self.label equals Q label. I guess we can build this into a somewhat simple function and show some basic Qt stuff. So I'm going to have a Q label come in here. and create a queue. Enter something. So I'm going to move this now down one row, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to start adding our other widgets to this QGrid layout. So you can see I have my XY position in the grid 0, 0. I've now moved this down to 1, 0. So let me execute this. Great. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to create a queue line edit. I'm going to import queue line edit. And the syntax for this will be self.queueLine edit equals queueLine edit. Great. So now I'm going to add this line edit to my QGrid. You can start to see the workflow come out here, where you create the queue object you want to use, you set it up, you set up the layout, you add the layout to the central widget, and then you start implementing the connections you want. So I have an interesting idea, a simple idea for something that would be fun to see. So if I enter something, you can see nothing is happening. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make another line edit and place it here, and I'm going to enter a bunch of text, and when I click this, it'll tell me what text I've entered. So I think that's a good simple application we can do within about 30 minutes to really understand Qt, how to set it up with respect to the Q app, the main window, inheriting from the superclass or the parent, the base class, to get the Q built-in functionality so that you can use their functionality to design your own GUI for what you need accomplished. Okay, so I'm going to create text entry queue line edit, and then I'm going to create a text display queue line edit. And then we have to add these to our QGrid. Okay. So what did I do wrong? Oops. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is do this. I'm going to create I'm going to create text entry slot. Then I don't want to copy and paste that. I'm going to say inside text entry slot. And I don't remember the syntax for this. What is the text? Text changed. So the call to this is called text changed. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say self.text entry queue line edit.text changed .connect text entry slot. Okay. Connect text entry to a text entry slot. Okay, so now if I add my PyQt slot decorator around this, text entry slot. Oh, it's self.textEntry slot because it's a class variable or class function. So you get, like, every time I edit this text, you can see that I enter the text entry slot. Great, that's exactly what we want. Now, what I'm going to do is create a text entered variable and set it equal to empty string. Great. Okay. So what I can actually do is I can pass that variable. The text that's entered will be passed through this PyQt slot decorator function here. And I'll show how this works. So I'm going to make this an F string. I'm going to say text entered this. What do I need to pass? Is it self? Like this? I don't remember the call to this. Right, because it's a decorator. That's right. Okay, so I have to add this str string variable to the list of variables. So I have my decorator that's going to handle passing that text from the QLine edit through the signal connection to my text entry slot function. This decorator handles it, but I have to include it in the variable list for my Python function, or it doesn't know what's actually going on. So watching a video about decorators would probably be useful to explain that, I think. But if you don't care too much, this is the syntax you need to use to get the entered text to show up in your slot. So there we go. You can see what we're working with. Great, so this is working mechanistically as we want it to. So the next thing, I guess I can just go like this. The next thing I want to do is I want to set self.textEntered equal to this. Now, what I want to do is every time I click start, or I'm going to say display text. Let me make sure I didn't make any syntax errors. Okay. Every time I click that button, I want to show the text that I've entered in the next QLine edit. Or you don't need to use a line edit. You could use a label if you want to as well. How to edit the text of a line edit. Set text. Okay, so inside the Q push button slot, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do this. I'm going to say self.text display line edit. Display line edit dot set text self dot text entered. And what we should see, if I do this correctly, is, oh, a crash. Oh, I bet I messed the name up. Q1, I bet I 100% messed that name up. Every time I call this or click this button, it'll tell me what I've entered. What's up, friend? But you'll notice that the signal slot doesn't execute until the signal happens. How is it going? So until I click, when I click this button, that's the signal. That's the signal with the connection to the slot. Then that relationship, I could say that better. When I click this button, that signal is connected to the slot that handles the logic. So when I click the push button, where's my connection for that? When I press the push button, sorry, I've connected the slot, push button slot. So anytime this push button is pressed, it's going to call this function and execute it. Nice. So that's the example. I think that's a pretty good example of how PyQt works and how you set things up. The last thing I guess I can show is you can see how the length of this is becoming fairly large. So in real Qt projects, you have separate modules for sometimes each slot, but it really depends on the project and what you need to accomplish and the routines you're running, etc., etc., etc. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open a new text file called, I should say new, and save as my main window up high. So what I'm going to do is cut this and then paste it inside here. And I think I can reduce those imports in this class. Import my main window. No module named my main window. Alright, let's work through this. Oh, that's weird. Is there a space or something in there? Yeah, there is a space. Let me delete this. Okay. Lol. Okay. There we go. So this is probably the end of this video, but I think I've gone through. I think I can remove actually a lot of this as well. So let's check it out. Hi, how are you? Great. So that's the end of the video. You can see you have your file import, right? So I'm importing this file with my main window. Maybe it wasn't such a great idea to name these two things the same thing, but the demonstration of the functionality would remain the same. So we've worked through setting up the structure, the flow of the window, and how you can use the superclass QMain window to build your own GUI. So from here you can figure out what else you want to do with it, and next thing I would probably do is get into threading and whatnot, because this is a very simple application and everything is running in the Q main event loop. But there are some things that are computationally heavy that you should push onto threads so that the Q main event loop doesn't stall. So what will happen if you hit a computationally heavy section, if you have a slot that does a lot of computation, the main event loop will wait, and eventually it'll stall out and the whole thing will stop. So next thing I will do is go through threads. So you come down in your main event loop, you hit that computationally heavy portion of the code, and you go out to your custom thread class that performs this computation and then signals back signals back is the right, it'll produce a signal to the slot in the main event loop that you have and handle that. So that's the end of this video. I hope it's been useful. The next thing I'll talk about is how to thread things that are computationally heavy.